I'm, oh wait.
Oh, I see something happening. I see you.
Uh-oh. I went
Okay.
live. I didn't go to the green room. I gotta hang up here.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Hi.
Yay, amazing. We all made it.
Yes, and I didn't put it in the green room, and I don't know how to go back.
We don't need that. Or maybe we do. I don't know.
Well, so far we're the only people logged on. So
Well, it doesn't start until 6:30, so
yeah. Yeah. Hi, Leela.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
Great to see you.
Do you have more light? Because you're a little fuzzy to me.
A little dark. Let me see what I can do. I'll move this closer.
I am going to go get my glasses while you guys.
Okay.
All the world's a stage.
Christine, how are you doing? Did you lose power at all today?
We did lose power, but we didn't have any internet for a good part of the day.
Oh, goodness.
But my friend Liz was out of power all day.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So I'm just going to make my stage a little taller.
Maybe I should do the same. Yeah. I'll add some cookbooks to it.
Cookbooks are the best.
Yes, they are.
I'm moving rooms.
Okay.
So I think it'll be better. I'm sorry, just doing some technical adjustments here.
My copy of Gourmet today will be my book stand. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I lost power all last night, but it's flickered a couple times today, but hasn't gone off today. So fingers crossed it makes it through this whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Just getting situated with my friends. Just kidding. I'm using my kids' drum as my little platform, but I think the living room is better here.
I love it.
This was a fun excuse to get out all my books, which I haven't looked at in like a really long time.
I've been flipping through your first book, which I am so excited to chat about. I just get so much inspiration from it. I am thrilled to have this conversation. It's going to be so much fun.
So sweet. You wrote the nicest questions. I was like, wow, they're so thoughtful. It was great.
Thank you. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, I feel like it's all so crazy with the pandemic. Everything is like, I don't know about eating, but I'm just like on survival. So
I know. Absolutely.
But I'm like, ooh, I would like to make things beautiful one day. But
yeah, it's been one of the things that saved me, and cookbooks are one of the things that unite Isabel and I. We she's in my cookbook club at the store, and the pandemic came, and I don't know if you've ever read this book, Leela, but it's Midnight Chicken.
Oh, that looks great. No.
Fantastic. Yeah.
The essays in it were just perfect for pandemic times. It was really, yeah. And I
write that down.
Pardon me?
I'm writing it down because I'll forget.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And by Ella Reesbridger. It's
cool.
It's English, but yeah, the writing was just so heartfelt. And
it was so lovely. I think because you recommended, I think it was like at the beginning of March, and so Andrew came by the store and picked it up in the middle of March, and it was like that first weekend of quarantine. I just poured over it the entire time. Like, her writing is stunning. It reads almost like a novel. It's incredible.
It, more like a memoir. But, yeah. So
that's great. And you all are in a cookbook club. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. Well, when it started, we would pick one book and everybody would make a recipe and we would have a potluck at the store.
Oh.
So
yeah.
That we're not doing.
Not terribly conducive to social distancing, but
food sharing. Oh no, food sharing. But we had, I don't know if you know Lorena Jones she's the publisher at 10 Speed now.
Oh, neat.
So we did one cookbook event with her where she talked about cookbook publishing.
Oh, that's great.
And that was awesome. And then Isabel and I talked about it. Feast Portland isn't happening this year. So we were, well, let's fill in the gap for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so... Well, I would love to go to your the other authors. I'm going to be an attendee if I can. That sounds like I'm like, oh, this is so fun. And the other books look great. I was just doing a little perusing. So
yeah,
Erica's books coming next. So
oh my gosh, she is. I read her first book when honestly I think I was like 13 or something. I've read all of her books at least like 3 times. She's phenomenal. So you are in great company, Leela. We are so excited to get to host all of you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Your books are amazing.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So awesome. They really are. They jump right out at you. They're tantalizing. I want to live in all those home pictures. Geez.
Yeah. Honestly, when I was working at Schoolhouse, like each of us had a copy of Food with Friends, and we were just always gushing about all of your recipes, always sharing them, and just your cookbook was a staple among the
designers. So sweet.
Yeah.
They did such a good job. I got to have that little event there a few years ago. It meant like so much to me. I mean, these little kind of anchors in your life but you don't know how they're going to go. And then it was like such a treat. And I didn't even, you work, it's so solitary in a lot of ways, making a cookbook, which is so weird because food is like about feeding everyone. But there's a lot of time, like, so it was really fun to be with people to celebrate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the best party ever. Like they did such a good job. Yeah, for sure. Such a fun store. And well, one day I look forward to going to your store.
Yay.
Yeah.
I just have a little store, but I love it.
It's
the best.
Like so neat. Yeah, it's such a neat like community place and good. I'm super impressed that you're making a bookstore work. It's awesome. I love books, so
yeah. I feel like the bookstore has part of the obligation of a small bookstore is to be part of the communication. I mean, the community.
Yeah.
We do events that for the local high school. We did an event recently with a bunch of BIPOC farmers and farmers markets.
That was amazing. That was such an incredible
event. It was a great event. So I feel like it's the obligation of the bookseller, to educate and build and bring community together. So That's enough about
awesome. That's a really amazing thing. I salute you.
No, thanks. Thank you.
Especially right now.
Yeah. It's been a crazy time.
Yeah.
It's been really crazy.
Oh yeah.
Where are you, Leela? Where is your?
I'm based in Santa Barbara, California. So it's a little town north of Los Angeles. And yeah, I'm in my house in the living room. And my son is 3 and he's spending the night with my parents who live a few blocks away. And my husband is taking care of the baby tonight. So
Yay!
So I've been looking, this has been on my calendar for a while. I'm like, I have an event. And yeah, we've been, everyone's healthy and fine. And my parents are basically like the childcare between my husband and I and my parents and our 2 little kids, and trying to work and do our life just with the 6 of us. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
So it's been really challenging to like do anything creative or do our work. We have a studio downtown, so and we used to live in Portland, as you guys know. So and we come there every year since we've moved. I'm from here, so my time in Portland was wonderful, but then I knew like I started having friends who started having kids and buying houses, and I just didn't want to be far from my parents. So I was like, let's move back there. And yeah, we're really close family. And now they used to have babysitters and go to daycare and school and stuff, preschool. So I'm really glad that they're nearby, because we're even more in each other's hair right now than ever before. But I'm so glad to have them. So that's a little, we have a little studio downtown that we work in and continue to shoot a lot of cookbooks for other people. And like with 10 Speed, I just shot a gardening book for 10 Speed, which was awesome. Which took me out of the studio, and I loved, because I just got to be around, you can't move a tree. You can like move a plate here and there till forever and debate about it with an art director. But a garden, you're just like making it what it can be at that moment. There's not much you can do. And it was really fun to be outside and get to be a voyeur in all these amazing gardens around town. So that was
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a fun project. So
yeah, I love 10 Speed. I used to work for them when I lived in Berkeley, and I was really worried when Random House bought them. I was really nervous. I mean, a lot of the quirky books they did
went away. Yeah.
But the cookbooks were always, they were always awesome, and they're still super awesome. And Lorena Jones, I worked with her at 10 Speed, which is how I talked her into doing our first event. But they're just, it was just, back then they were a hippie publisher. Phil Wood still owned them. And it was nuts. It was like the parties and
Wild West.
It was wild. Yeah. We did one book. I don't think I have it on my shelf. Cowboy in the Kitchen.
Oh, cool.
There was a mezcal tasting. Oh my God.
Fun.
Wow.
That sounds great.
Crazy time.
Let me show you this book that I just did with them. If I can find it. Shoot. Oh, there we go.
These aren't alphabetical by genre?
No, it's total chaos. Total chaos. That's right. But this is the book that it just came out like right before maybe March.
Cute.
But it's cute. You might like it for your store. It's 2 Santa Barbara authors, and it's really like approachable gardening tips, which as for me, like I'm a novice gardener, so I was, it's all water wise, like drought tolerant. it's cute. It was really, it was a real treat to shoot, and it's a nicely designed, like, they you know, I'm very into the full bleed picture. As the photographer, I'm like, I need a lot of photos. So I was really happy that they like really got out of the way, you know, of, and it's written by two women who have one of them has a magazine background. Here's a nice full pager.
Oh, beautiful.
So yeah, like, it's very quippy style. It's not too long. Like, it's an easy read. One of the authors is a magazine writer, so it has that feeling of just like easy tips, you know, so that was fun. It's called Small Garden Style, which it seems very Portland appropriate too.
Very people. Portland, very pandemic appropriate too.
Yeah, who have just a little porch or
There's somebody else on.
Ooh.
Jenny. I don't know if it's my Jen or Jenny.
Yeah, we still got a couple before we start.
Oh. Hi, fellow books.
Hi, Jen. Okay, now. Oh. Hi, Jenny. Jenny owns Wacoma Books in Hood River.
Oh,
she pops on every now and then. Thank you, Jenny. I know we're just sort of like background talking here. So, and we're also, Jen, my Jen is going to stream us to Facebook too.
Oh, awesome.
So we're doing that. Are we drinking during this event? Can I get my glass of wine?
I can go ahead and pour myself a glass of wine.
Leela, nice. Let me go get something. I'll be right back.
Okay, we'll be back.
Jenny's
I love it.
Hi, Laura. We're just getting settled with our beverages, and we'll get started in a few minutes here. I accidentally just put us right live instead of in the green room, but we're glad that you can all join us for a beverage. Have a nice day.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Salud.
Salud.
Good idea.
Yeah, you know, events, there should be drinking. Laura has a glass of water. Lovely. That's my people. That's the one thing about COVID I've been drinking too much, you know?
Yeah.
I know. Gotta have your like little treats at the end of the day to make
exactly.
it, to mark that we've made it another day.
One more day. One more day.
Yeah.
What was I saying though? I was going on and on about something silly. Out of my head.
That's okay.
Yeah. Now I feel all shy now that people are on.
That's what the green room's for, to work out all of our nerves first.
Yeah, exactly. Get all the nervousness going. So it looks like we have more people are registering.
Yay.
Oh, good. Jen's got us ready to go to Facebook.
Amazing.
Will you send me that link so I can I know my mom is like, I want to watch.
You can watch on Crowdcast.
Oh yeah.
So you can in the top of your screen there's a share.
Yeah. Oh, I will do that. Got it.
So you can either share the link or
I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yay. I just recently got chickens.
Christine,
how fun.
How many did you get?
3.
Oh.
Yeah. Their names are Jolene, Lucy, and Blue.
Those are great. That is so cute. Is this your first time?
What kind of chicken?
I don't know. Somebody was getting rid of them, and I said, I want them. So I took them.
That's so fun.
Are they laying eggs?
They're laying eggs. They're teenagers. They're pullets. I say that like I know what I'm talking about.
That's okay.
I know what I'm talking about. Oh, fun.
So I'll just do a little PSA about the store, and then I will take myself off screen and turn it over to you, Isabel.
Awesome.
Pardon me?
Sounds good.
The only PSAs I think I have are tomorrow. Isabel's also having a discussion with Erica Bauermeister. Erica has 2 new books coming out that are not food related. Feeling Home and
House Lessons.
House Lessons, that's it.
And then The Scent Keeper came out in the spring of 2019.
That's what it was, The Scent Keeper.
Yeah.
And she will be on same time tomorrow. And then if you don't know, Two Rivers also has a Patreon program. You can sign up for Patreon. We have 3 different levels. You get prizes for different things. It is our community-supported books, yarn, and crafts. We support the community. We do events. We have events like this. So if you are compelled to join Patreon, please do. And now I am going to turn it over to Isabel.
Yay! Awesome. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
See ya.
Oh, no, I did it wrong. Hold, please. There we go.
Awesome. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the first night of our Supper Club event. I'm Isabel Iman. I'm a local Portland writer and food blogger. And yeah, just thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this virtual author talk. So for the first night in the series, I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Leela Cyd. Leela is an incredible lifestyle and food photographer, and she's the author of 4 books. Leela lives in Santa Barbara, but she spent, was it 7 years that you lived in Portland?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 7 years. Okay. Yep. Amazing. And I just think that's one of the beautiful things about quarantine is that we're able to connect with people from far away. So I'll just share too, I already told Leela, but I first discovered her work at the launch of her first book, Read with Friends, at a great event hosted by Schoolhouse here in Portland. And it feels a bit like I've been wanting to have this conversation since then. That was many years ago. So this is a conversation a long time in the making. So I am super, super excited. And just a couple housekeeping things too before we start. The event will last about an hour, but we're going to save time for questions at the end. So if you do have questions, just feel free to drop them in the chat. There's also the Ask a Question function at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions to ask, just drop them in there. Yeah. So you ready to get started, Leela?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me in that nice intro.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to get started by speaking kind of generally about your food, the recipes that you develop, and the way that you photograph it. When I look at your cookbooks and when I look at your food photography, it's so full of color, it's so full of enthusiasm, and really just this general excitement for life and for food. How do you imbue your food with so much energy?
Let's see. Well, I really have a deep love of food in the sense that my family grew up cooking a ton and eating always together. And my parents didn't practice any religion other than the religion of the dinner table. So we always had dinner together, and my mom worked really long hours, and my dad was more the cook in our family. And now that I have little kids of my own, I do realize like what a feat that was, just to make a homemade simple meal every night. We really didn't go out, barely ever, except for like the Jewish tradition of eating Chinese food on like the Shabbos or any holiday is going up for Chinese. So, but just day in, day out, simple food, pasta, all, chicken, just nothing fancy, but he cooked almost every day, all day. So anyway, that is where all that started. So that really imbued me with the sense of being an imperfectionist with food. So just making it and eating it and enjoying it together, not having it be elaborate, but always just the fun of being together and maybe trying some new things, maybe not, being afraid of certain foods as a kid, but him sort of wielding his like, well, you can have dessert if you try this. So that kind of thing. It was a constant revolving door of guests, growing up near the ocean in California, and also in a university town where my parents worked. So there was always a guest, and it was really lively. And even as little kids, we were expected to help or set the table or make flower arrangements or do something and really like be present and participate. So I think that just helped set me on the track for adulthood and like love of food, that it doesn't have to be perfect, but it can be fun. It can be like the staff of your whole day and your life and the rhythms that you make. So as a young adult in Portland, I worked in several restaurants because I had graduated with an art degree, so I didn't know what I was doing anyway. And I loved to eat, and I always worked in restaurant jobs and loved the fact that you got a free meal out of your payment, and got to meet people and eat delicious food and talk about food. So I have many fond memories. My first job in Portland was at St. Honore Bakery in Northwest. And just having been back there, I was actually there right before the pandemic. And on March 4th was my last trip, and it was to Portland. And I went back there and I thought, man, this place is still great.
So good.
The regulars are still there, who I recognize from 15 years ago as a server. And the food is still there's a reason I was drawn to it. I lived a few blocks away. So anyway, all that is a lengthy response to, how I came to food, and just was always around it and always thought it was the fun part of the day. And my interest kind of grew from there as a photographer and a cook. I worked as a personal chef for a few years in Portland, and that kind of just honed my everyday cooking skills that you have to kind of just get better at something. So
absolutely. Yeah. Did it always feel special to be growing up that way, just always having meals with your family, or did you kind of find yourself wanting to go out as a kid? Because I know way, and we talk about it now, and it feels so special to have all these meals together. But I also remember as a kid wanting to go out to restaurants and things like that.
Yes, totally. And I often remember begging my parents, wishing, why can't we be normal? Which I perceived as my other friends' houses who would just have rice-a-roni or hamburger helper, something that came from a microwave, whereas my dad, always made something homemade. I longed to go to McDonald's. I never went to McDonald's as a kid. So Taco Bell was an exotic food to me. And so as a teenager, I definitely ran through a course of pizza and bean cups and, anything junk was very exciting to me, to go to another house that had a pantry with cereal that, my parents had homemade granola, and I was I want Captain Crunch. So yeah.
Oh, too funny.
Yeah.
So as a photographer and a cookbook author and a writer, you're just doing so many things, and obviously your work spans across all of these different disciplines, but they each clearly inform one another. You have this distinctive style, you have a distinctive viewpoint, but what do you really think is, or find is the thread that sort of unites all of these interests that you have?
Well, I love to eat. So with photography, that really came from the love of eating and cooking. So I feel like that's all wrapped up together. Like I'm always intrigued about the story of a recipe or the food and where it come from, like having traveled a bunch and learning about cooking all over the world, just who made it, whose grandmother or grandfather's tradition it was. And so when I'm thinking as a recipe developer, I'm thinking about that, like what's the story of the food? And then as a photographer as well, I'm always trying to bring out the story of the food. So rather than it just be kind of a 3/4, like really tight shot of a beverage, a little beer, I'm thinking like, oh, this is Pacifico, so I might have the bottle and some limes, and try to give it more of a story. Like, okay, it's a pandemic. Maybe there's some dirty laundry in the background or something, to like help make you feel like you're there. And I'm really drawn to photos that are communicating more than just the food. And like the personality of the food or the people who make it. So I feel like those inform each other, being a photographer and kind of sharing the story of the food, and then also thinking with a photo kind of in mind as I'm doing recipe development, like, will this be beautiful? So thinking, oh, I'll add fresh herbs, I'll add a little pomegranate or a little jewel like flair to, because yes, that will taste good, but also it will make the photo more beautiful. So
yeah, I think as somebody who has pored over your cookbooks and your photography, I absolutely feel that sort of attention given to context and the story of the food and the story of the photograph. And I think that does a really beautiful job of sort of providing this connection that people can have with your food and your photography.
Well, thanks. I really feel like it's essential, and I find so much joy in making those images and those recipes because I feel like I get to just fully express my artistic idea. And when I'm invited to do that for other people, like Kachka is a cookbook I shot, and they're so involved with the story of each dish that's like the perfect client for me, because it's not it's not just a pretty picture. It's full of meaning and layers of family and memory. And so I tried to bring that in. And it's so much fun to get to tell other people's story through their food and photographing it, because you get to kind of put on their hat and learn about their world and try to communicate that visually, which is always my big goal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so speaking of Kachka, and you mentioned it a little bit before, there's just the fact that you lived in Portland, and we're a city that certainly prides ourselves on our food culture. How do you think your work, both your photography and your recipe creation, how was it impacted by the city's culture and the approach to food?
Oh, it really was the perfect place to be a young professional, kind of like finding my way and my visual style and my voice, because I mean, the food moved, like, we lived there in 2006 to 2013. So the energy around like the farm to table movement, which of course is a given everywhere, that was just such a huge deal at the time, and to be opening my eyes to that as a young adult, it was so exciting. So just going to the farmers market every weekend, that was our main hobby, on Saturdays at PSU.
PSU, yeah.
And getting to know some of the farmers and the foods. And I mean, we just ate our little faces off. And it was such a treat. Like that was a huge reason why we moved to Portland, was just the quality of the produce and the ingredients and the care that every chef and every farmer seemed to be giving to their food was a new thing to my husband and I as young people. So, and then I was sort of at the right place in the right time. So the food media world just all of a sudden like zoomed in on Portland. Feast started, Bon Appetit, the New York Times. I just was working as, I went to school to be a teacher, and my path kind of led me away from that because I came out of PSU in 2008 and they were just not hiring new teachers, period. So that's when I got a job as a personal chef and just trying to hustle my photography because that was my other interest, to just make money. But yeah, a lot of people called like because I just happened to be there and there just wasn't that many people covering it, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was given the chance because there was so much attention. And there continues to be, I mean, for good reason. I don't think I have ever been to a place that has such good food for such a value as Portland. I mean, having an amazing meal for under $20. You can't do that in LA, New York, Brooklyn, Santa Barbara, forget it. Like the diversity of the food and the exceptionality. We were like pigs in slop. I still am like, the cookies and the culture of it being like cold and wet. That kind of the weather biome. I mean, we just ate, like, I just needed a treat every day. I got really into hygge. That was my, and then because it was so cozy, I needed to like drink and eat to keep my spirits up.
It's all
and then
cycle. Exactly.
Yes. And then the summer would come and that explosion of produce. And, I've been berry picking here. I'm like, this is trash compared to Portland. I can't wait to get my kids up to Sauvie Island and pick some berries.
No, it's amazing. Yeah, you can go to the PSU farmers market at like 10:30 on a Saturday and just eat your whole lunch there.
Yeah.
Like sampling everything.
Yeah. And then the light of Portland really helped me as a photographer because that cloud layer, it just made it so I never really had to learn the technical details of photography. I just put the food near a window and it looked pretty good.
Interesting. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful soft shadow on everything.
Yeah.
And now moving to California, I had to like relearn how to be a photographer. So that was very lucky. I didn't know like how lucky I had it.
Yeah. Just listening to you sort of reflect upon your experience in Portland, it sounds like, as a student, we're like always kind of like piecing together what we think we want our future to be, what we think our future might look like. Did it sort of feel to you that you were always pushing for photography to be your main medium and that food kind of just like supported you alongside that, or did they sort of coexist as one simultaneously?
Well, I went to school for art, and I majored like in painting and drawing and did everything in the arts besides photography because my dad was a photographer, so I just never wanted to do what he did. But then I got an old, like, he gave me just the first DSLR, just this little point and shoot. And I was starting to cook a lot. And I was like, wait, I'll just take pictures of this because I was really into food blogging. It had just started really like 2004 to 2007. I was reading thekitchen.com and Molly Weisenberg. Came to Powell's. That was an amazing resource.
Oh, wow.
And spoke about her first book, and Clotilde Desilliers, like Chocolate and Zucchini. Some of the first big food bloggers came through Portland, and I went to all their talks and sat in the front row and was like, I have a question. So I really feel like the food, it became the perfect subject for me because it was never moving. And I could eat it afterwards. So to me, it's like the perfect subject. Whereas a model, you have to pay, and like a house, you have to arrange. A food is small, and it really did feel like I was composing a painting, which is what I had a background in. And I never took a class. I only learned by trial and error, and it took me a really long time. I made a lot of mistakes. And continue to, but my dad's kind of attitude of you can figure it out. And with digital, which it really had just kind of become a thing that you could like have a digital camera and never deal with the cost of film. So I would just take a million pictures to get to one, because there was nothing to lose. So that was a real, I mean, it was a great way to learn something because there's no consequence and no supplies, and you don't have to store it. You know, my husband's a painter. We're like moving paintings all the time with I just have my hard drive and my computer. And I started blogging for the kitchen, thekitchen.com, which is like national food website, early in 2009. And that gave me, you know, having the deadline once a week to do it and write a story and have images really helped me improve. And I was able to feature Portland chefs and pitch stories and have, it was a wonderful, like, kind of learning experience on the ground, learning through a job. So
yeah,
that was great.
I love all your articles on the kitchen. They're amazing. That's a great resource too, and I can scroll through that website forever.
Yeah, it still like really holds up. I use the recipes all the time, so I can attest that they're good, and they do feature like the culture around food, which is really nice. How people eat and cook, and chefs and regular people, and you know, postal workers, what they eat in a day. It's interesting. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So turning it away from Portland for a little bit, you've traveled a lot teaching workshops and classes. How do you find that like your exposure to other cultures has influenced your food? And I'll add a part 2 of that question as well, because obviously right now it's travel really isn't an option for a lot of people at this moment. So what are other ways that we can sort of look beyond our immediate surroundings and context to find inspiration?
Yes. Well, I, you know, from a young age was really spoiled in my ability to travel. My dad, as I said, was a photographer, and he was a photojournalist in the heyday of photojournalism. So pre-internet, 1980 to like 2000. He worked at the university, but he also shot for every magazine and New York publication, New York Times, Smithsonian, Discover magazine, all these great, real like quality magazines. And he was sent all over the world. So as a kid, my brother and I each got to trade who got to go on each trip. And then the other kids stayed home with my mom, which was a real treat because we'd like eat cereal in bed and break all the rules. And so we never went on a family vacation. We were always just like on the road with my dad. And that really, you know, it showed. So I hadn't been to like the Sierras or Portland, you know, which is within a short drive of Santa Barbara, but I just went there. That's why I'm thinking of it, the national park. But I never went camping, but I had been to like Laos and France and Myanmar and India by the time I was 15 extensively. So, and he, you know, it was the perfect way to travel because he had a job to do but always encouraged my interest in cooking. And I had a journal and was always taking notes on the food, and he would say, "Oh, go talk to the chef, just go right back there and and no one's going to refuse a kid." so that was the real treat, and I plan to use my children for the same thing one day. But so that deep love of travel is always like in the core of who I am, and food is the link to everything. Like asking someone abroad about food or their special dish they just made, you know, it will open up to their whole story. So I learned that really early on. And then when I was young and had just, you know, during that Portland stay, my husband and I, we saved up, we got married, and we decided to like live abroad for a year. And we always so we lived in India, Vietnam, and Turkey, and we just always would save up. And Portland was such a great place to live to do that because it was inexpensive at the time, and we were able to go all over. So we would just save to go on the next big trip, and our biggest trip being that one where we lived abroad for a year because we had no house, no children, no real responsibilities, and it was cheap, and it was a huge learning experience for us. So I always have felt like travel is like my biggest passion. And we've my husband as well. So I'm lucky in that way. Like we've just prioritized it over nice cars or nice houses. We just would say, well, we'd rather go for a summer of having fun in Amsterdam and England and then live in a nice place. So that was, we were really aligned on that. And that was something that we always had fun doing. So, you know, having small kids now, I have not traveled as much, and then the pandemic happened. But I do think, you know, I still like love to look at cookbook authors from all over the world to like kind of help me get out of my head. So Nigel Slater is English, I love. And in Jules' Kitchen is a woman I met in Italy who just had a baby, and she's like always making easy Italian food. And I just start, I'm like armchair traveling as much as possible with chefs from abroad and looking at, you know, Japanese cooking videos when I'm tired and need a break. So I'm not really like, I don't have the energy for chef's table, or like the really glamorous chef cooking is not really what excites me, but the home cooks, like Italian pasta grannies, YouTube, you know, stuff, Bon Appetit before their whole YouTube shakedown. But I'm just trying to like look at people from all over the world, and really like look at their books as much as I can. So I'm going to be using this new to me bookstore as a resource, and your talks, just to get out of my head. And I love seeing what other moms to young kids are making too, because that's a real genre that I'm in that is not the most creative, but it is real life. And like, how are they serving kids to make them eat it, you know? So trying to pick up tips.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite place that you've traveled to?
Well, when I dream about like the minute the pandemic is done and that I'm gonna like leave my children at home and I'm gonna go straight back to Japan with my husband, because we just had a real we have traveled so much, and it just was a real culture change of pace that unlike anything I've ever seen. So we lived in India, which I consider as like my spiritual home, and I love India and I'd love to take my kids there, and there's so much more to explore. We lived in the South, but Japan is just like top of mind as far as like luxury and relaxing and celebrating the end of this time. And we just scratched the surface right before we had kids too. So I think it's like kind of fresh in my mind, but all the onsens and the bathing, the gourmet bathing, and the attitude towards food and the specificity towards like beauty and nature. And the ease to get there from the West Coast. I mean, it really wasn't that hard, and it opened our eyes in a way that I just don't think we'd had ever seen anything like that, and we didn't know what to expect. So it was great.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like I've been thinking about Japan a lot lately too, and wanting to go there as well. I've never been. My partner has traveled there, but it just seems like the culture there has just such an appreciation for everything, not only food, just all of the details of life, and they have all of their own rituals for honoring that. So
yeah, we I think it is. Yeah, I totally agree. So let's all get back there one day.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not traveling right now. We are still very much so in quarantine. How has this time shifted the way that you're cooking and really just your creative process in general? Are there ways sort of that it feels like the pandemic has limited, but also possibly expanded your perspective?
Well, I really feel like I'm seeing like what I'm made of. So I do appreciate that like deep well of perseverance. Not that I have it hard. I mean, I live in a nice town and there's so many people who have it so much more difficult. And I'm super grateful for the resources of my parents, but just having two little kids, 3 and a baby who just turned 1, it's just like an intense time anyway. And as far as creativity, I really am at like a 0. I gotta be honest. I want I know it will come back, and I'm just trying to not put too much pressure on that. I'm trying to work, which are just, paid jobs that I need to kind of like keep going with our family's survival and our budget and our, but they're not, I think it takes like the brain space. So I've always worked in conjunction while doing my cookbooks, which I felt like were my personal projects that I was able to kind of get funded and released into the world. But I don't have that kind of empty space to be thinking or daydreaming. I'm just kind of in survival mode with these two little people. And at the end of the day, I really got like 1 hour of TV watching and a book reading. And then I really like need to go to bed to do it all over again. So just caring for them, I'm really seeing like just how much resilience that takes and how much being a full-time mother, like how hard that is. So yeah, I have complete admiration and respect for all the other parents out there, and because it just is really hardcore, whatever situation you're in too, I think is just intensified for everyone, whether you're like alone or with your family, you're really with your family, or you're really alone, or all these things. So we have really simple food, and I just don't worry about it, and I try not to overthink it, and it's what works for our little family. So that's pretty much some version of like zucchini stir fried with garlic and some kind of pasta and a sausage.
Yeah.
So,
and that's a huge.
I'm like, there's a vegetable, there's a starch, and there's a protein for like the kids. And my daughter, who's 1, can like just start to eat with us, like real, and I'm vegetarian, so I have to like make just a pot of beans too, or something. So we just made it to the point where we're like all eating the same thing. So I don't know if there's any other parents of small kids, but yeah, the creativity, my son and I, who's 3, we do make a lot of cakes because I love cake, and it's a great like activity to do with a little kid. So we make simple tea cakes and like deliver them to friends, maybe once a week, and that feels fun. But I don't quite know how to like be creative while I'm parenting this much.
One important thing though to just acknowledge and to accept, because I feel like we got to this one point in quarantine where just all the external sources on the internet were just like in my ear. I don't know if they were in your ear too, but telling us how much time we actually did have right now, and that this should be the time that we should be writing the book we've always wanted to write, doing all those creative projects that we've always set off in the past. And it's actually like, well,
yeah, it's not quite. Yeah, I know the making of, everyone's in a different situation. So, maybe other people do, but I used to have, I feel like, so much more time because my kids were looked after by people, not me. And so now, and having little ones, they just can't be plugged in and like watch TV all day. They just are demanding. And so I'm lowering the standard, lowering the bar right now, and trying to just get some food on the table, and hopefully that creative juice will come back when there's just a little more time. But for now, reading is my favorite hobby. So, because you can do it horizontal and it requires it's always there, and I'm always interested in a book, and I, with all the little wake ups of a little baby, I just read a ton at night in all the in-between hours, like that a kid is resting or supposed to be awake or not, and to put myself to bed. So I've actually like just decided, like, fully embraced that hobby, which as a bookstore and a book person, I mean, I am reading a ton, which is really fun. I mean, it's my favorite.
Right now?
I just finished this book called Members Only by Samir Pandya, who is local to Santa Barbara author, who's an Indian American fellow, and that was great. There's lots of little Easter eggs about Santa Barbara, and it's a big kind of question about the middle space of not being Black and not being white, but being Indian American. So it's very good topical novel. And now I just started Luster, which is very hot and steamy.
Okay.
I can't remember the author's name. She's a young Black author. It's on like every blog right now.
Okay. I'm sure I'll find it then.
It's hot. It's like it's kind of about this young woman in her 20s who's like very disheveled and having an affair with a married man. So
I love it. That sounds like a book I'll be reading right now.
Yeah, it's really good. I highly recommend it, Lester.
Ooh, okay, perfect. Yeah. So I have your first book with me right here, Food with Friends, and I also the cover is mesmerizing. I am in love with these beet pickled deviled eggs. I have never made them myself before, but they are just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And so I wanted to chat about it a little bit and just talk about how it centers on really simple food, kind of like what you were discussing, what your family made growing up, but simple food being the vehicle for gathering with loved ones. How does simplicity in the food that we create translate to being memorable? Because oftentimes we sort of trick ourselves into thinking that food has to be elaborate, it has to be this grand, expansive thing, when really oftentimes, I think, at least for myself, the best meals that I've had have been the simplest, you know? So how do we?
Well, I think you're right. I think it just takes one little twist maybe to make it feel really special. So like the deviled eggs, for example, are just like a really basic deviled egg, but then you stick them in you could just use a can of beets and some vinegar and sugar and stick them in there even for an hour and they would turn a slight pink. So I think having it is really fun to have those special meals like Thanksgiving and Christmas or birthday dinner where you make, it's a communal sharing experience where everyone makes something really special. But those are really, under 5 days a year, and the rest of the year, every, 365, 3 meals a day, we're left with this like constant need to fuel ourselves. So I think if you can decide to make, your morning wake up like with either your coffee and like a little slice of something that you prepped before, like a little tea cake or a morning bun of some kind. So I have a tahini bun in here, which is actually really easy. It's store-bought pastry and like tahini with sugar, and roll it up, cook it like a cinnamon roll. So just kind of now I'm all about like forethought, because I have to cook kind of ahead of time, having little children who are hungry right when they wake up or right at dinner at 5. Just having that going. So constantly, like, not tons of stuff, but I think one special thing, like a zippy salad dressing that you could put on, a pasta or a salad, or a little like toast. That I've got a toast in here, which is just kind of silly, that has butter. I learned about it in Amsterdam, where they do a little thick slice of butter and then sprinkles on top. Which
I wanted to ask you about that recipe. I love every time I flip to that page, I just get.
It's just fun. Like
it's a party on toast.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, it's not perfectly healthful, but like jam is sugar, a little sprinkle of sugar. So if it can kind of add a little delight to your day, I think these are the things to look out for and try to make room for in advance, like that little ritual of having 15 minutes even of like a little delight. It really goes a long way. For me, it helps my whole day feel like I can keep going from treat to treat. So like it starts with coffee and then it ends at night with tea, and all in between is like, I need like a little bit of really nice farmer's market honey, like sprinkled all over my like peanut butter toast, and, Maldon salt, like having those things. It's really about pantry staples and having some make ahead things, and then thinking seasonally. So keeping it simple, I think, is always a good idea. And I'm always really inspired by other people who do that so well. And I think it's the daily act of like the slog that we're in and cooking and feeding ourselves. If you can make like one moment in the day with something delicious with your family or just with yourself. Like, before I had children, I was just very into doing this for myself as a way to feel alive and feel happy and like connect with my joy and like who I really am. Which is someone who loves to like delight in things. So, and I think food is kind of the easiest way to do that because we're already doing it.
Yeah.
Like we already have to eat. So, might as well like make it beautiful and happy. And I don't do this every day and I don't do this all day, but I really do try to have like those, just those anchor moments that can help calm you down, give you a little happiness, a little peace of mind, remind you like who you are and that what the central part of life. And that's really what my Hygge book is about, which I learned about in Denmark. And so much of Japan's rituals are about too, is like really locking into the moment, and having a food help you do that. So like a matcha tea and a tea ceremony and a little tiny sweet, or being in Italy and having like an espresso with, perfect tiny cookie that you didn't order, it just comes with it, these are like the little things that I think, life is hard. So the rest, like having a few things you can count on is nice.
Yeah, I feel like I've been noticing recently just how absolutely delicious my morning coffee has been tasting. I think it's because I've sort of adopted that mindset that you're describing there, that it's something that provides some structure to my day and these days that can otherwise feel exactly the same as the day before, like it's just so important to notice those things that make us feel good and to incorporate them. And they can be small things that you're describing. And I love that too. It's so accessible,
Yeah. I really believe in that, and that, having a few fun jars of things can go a long way to liven up your day. So
absolutely. Yeah. So again, on the topic of your first book, it's all kind of surrounding the idea of food being a central gathering point for spending time with friends, spending time with loved ones, family, everything. I'm sure, obviously, we're going through a pandemic, and so nobody's really getting together with lots of people, at least we shouldn't be. But I'm curious if you've been thinking about just gatherings and parties and maybe like how this time apart is making you rethink how we can gather.
Well, I've been really fantasizing about when we can gather. So that's been helping me going just about like, touching my friends and making pizza together and doing things that we took for granted, making spaghetti night and watching all our kids eat spaghetti, and drinking wine. Like these are not things that I would have held so dear before. And now I really, really think about them often. But the way that I've been really making effort to stay connected to most of my friends here that are local, just because I love them and miss them. And a great way to do that is to drop off food. So we do a lot of baking, as I said, and no one is going to refuse a little like baked good. And it's an easy way to just say like, hey, I'm coming over. Or if I happen to have a sliver of 30 minutes where, my mom is covering the baby extra, or like there's a little window of time, I'll like run out and get a coffee at, curbside pickup at our wonderful coffee shops and get 2 donuts and like drop one off at a friend's house. Because I know that they want that too. And it's just hard to get out and do these things if you're doing a Zoom school day with your kid, and no friend of mine is going to refuse just a nice coffee and a treat delivery. So I it all seems to all come back to treats, but and caffeine, and that's really what I'm running on. But we do make a lot of little homemade goods like that, and then my parents, we share every food order, and if I'm making, my dad just made tomato sauce, and he brought he like sent back 2 extra pints with me, and there's just a forever exchange of Tupperwares that are going back and forth, and like my mom's saying, I've got 20 lids, I'm like, I have 20 bottoms, and I'm like, they will intersect. So if I'm making waffles, I'm gonna make 2 and just throw them in the stroller for my parents, because we just live basically in 2 households that are in constant communication and flow with each other. So I try to, my neighbors, I actually have gotten really close with a lot of neighbors, which has been a positive side of the pandemic, just because we're like so desperate for connection. And one of the silver linings of this has been a neighbor couple, 2 women who have 2 kids the same age, we're just in constant flow of food and groceries. So we all eat the same stuff. And one of them's South Indian. So we have that in common, of this like love of Indian food. So, you just can't make a small amount of dal. So like I make a big dal, I drop off a jar at her house, and then a few days later, there'll be like a chutney and like a little piece of cracker. She's eating a cookie she got from the Indian grocery. And I'm like, I would like some of those. And then they appear thrown out from her bicycle later that afternoon. So and at the beginning we were sharing all the groceries because we were like not doing any shopping really. So I do feel like that food again is like a bridge, and helps you have fun and helps you relax. And I'm having a friend over tomorrow for a glass of wine, and I'll make like a little cookie. Got cookies in the freezer, dough stashed, and that's just a nice eat. And actually I learned that from the Grand Central Bakery, to always have the dough in the freezer already prepped, because they are even better from the freezer. They like pop up. So
oh my gosh,
can't go wrong there.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So I definitely still like really believe, and it's nice to talk to you about it, because like I haven't really gotten to talk to someone about food, but like food is the glue of community, and it's just the easiest way to tell someone that you love them and share with each other. So I love cookbooks because they just help inspire that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I love hearing about everything that you're doing right now with food, and sort of the exchange of food with your friends and everything, because I feel like in some ways that's even more powerful than getting a big group of, obviously it's wonderful to have a big group of people together gathering around a dinner, but there's something so special and so intimate about just saying to someone, hey, I picked up a donut for you. Do you want a donut? Or I just made a batch of cookies. Do you want some cookies? Like, I think that's a really beautiful way of telling somebody that they're loved, they're seen, and that's what we all need right now during this time.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. So switching it then a little bit to, I feel like it's so funny, and we're having this conversation where like half of it is hypothetical. Like, imagine this time where we can all gather around a table with 10 of our loved ones. When that's possible, let's just imagine. So I want to talk about the idea of like creating an inviting table, because I feel like it's something that a lot of people we talk about, but it's definitely concept. It's something that we absolutely feel like we can go to somebody's house for dinner, and then we can walk away and say just like how inviting of a host or hostess they were. But it's certainly like difficult to describe in concrete terms. What are some concrete things that we can do to make our gatherings feel more welcoming, warm, and meaningful?
Well, I really like to have things prepped in advance. So so I think about like main dishes. Always like a lasagna or eggplant parmesan or a big bowl of soup. Like having something already going and then having just a nice bread. And if someone wants to bring something, they can just bring a beverage. But I like to, when I am hosting, which I did so often on just a casual basis because I don't make it into like a very done thing. I just like to have like one nice dish. Like I really don't believe that there needs to be a starter, a salad, a main, and a dessert. Like that is just too much to deal. I think for me, it would prevent me from inviting people over to have to do all that. So like the ease of use is very important to me. So having just a really good homemade vegetarian soup and a good bread, that was kind of my go-to winter invite meal. And I feel like that is warm and cozy, makes people feel good and nourished, and just always having some yummy bottle of wine going or bubble water with just like some fruits in it to make it feel fun and inviting. If someone wants to bring a dessert, great, but always I really don't like to like cook while people are there. I find it too distracting. Like I know some people are all about bringing the people into the kitchen and like having them finish things. And I do think that is fun if you don't, we'll have little kids over and do like a cake or decorate something as a project, but actually trying to get like 6 adults fed, I'm about ease and just simple 5-ingredient recipes. And just saying, please come, like no hesitation. So I rarely use cookbooks. I'll look at them for an idea, but then I'll just riff on them, and having like, nice music or and the food already done. And I like to have like the bowls out just ready to go so that I feel like I can enjoy it that way. And then I don't do dishes that night. We renovated our kitchen. I got one of those huge farm sinks so that we could throw everything in the sink and not look at it. That was like
just throwing dishes and forgetting about them.
And also not inviting people for a meal, but having a little tea or an in-between meal, like a snack, I think is really easy. And just having like really good potato chips and like warm up some olives and a beer is great. Like, so just thinking outside of the 3-course, unless you're really motivated to do that. And like, I love going to a meal that's a real showstopper like that. I just find that I only do those on like holidays. And the rest is just like one little simple thing, but good ingredients go a long way. So like good bread, good butter, good salt, big salad or big soup, big already made tray of pasta.
Perfect. I feel like my go-to is just like a big thing of mac and cheese that emerges from the oven at the perfect time. Like people are there for 15 minutes. You can smell it. You're starting to like, oh, what's in the oven?
Yeah.
Beautifully golden casserole of mac and cheese.
So good. Yes. And I love, my friends and I who have little ones, like we all just have dinner. We're like, come over at 4. It's so nice.
Yeah.
So kids can play and chill and parents can have a little drink, and it's not, everyone's done by 6:30. Like I'm just on a different time zone and it's little kid time. And it's very relaxing to hang out with other people who are also on that schedule. So I noticed that was something we did a lot. And I love having like a movie night. We would have a Friday night, like order pizza and not even make homemade food. And we have a big projector and just movie every week. So that I love to like pair food with just watching something good in an intentional, like big screen way. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think too, what I'm hearing also is like, as a consistency is just this idea of just allowing yourself to be relaxed about it, not making anything too complicated if it doesn't need to be. And if you are somebody who does want to do that multi-course meal, lean into it, but don't get stressed about it because it's not fun for you. It's not fun for anybody else. And it doesn't make a good gathering.
Yeah, I think potluck is a great way to go so that you can experience that like bounty of different flavors. And what you have going, a cookbook club, I would love to do something like that, so that you do get all these little tastes. And or having like a supper club where you make rotate who does the main, because it is fun to have like those different tastes in your mouth all at one great plate, like Thanksgiving style. But yeah, not essential.
Yeah. So we have about 5 minutes left here. We do have one question in the Ask a Question box. Somebody asked, what do you think about the art of visiting?
Oh, the art of visiting. Oh, like being a good guest, maybe? Is that what that means? Should I ask?
Well, let's see. I'm not really sure how to respond.
Well, I'll just go with that.
Yeah.
The art of visiting. Like, I love being a guest. Oh, look, there we go. Hi.
I don't know what happened. I touched something.
Oh, that's okay. We're just a trio now. I love to bring something if I can, even if it's just like a good piece of cheese from a store or a nice, decent bottle of wine or something bubbly. But also it's nice to just be in someone's house and let them, if they're like one of my pet peeves is apologizing for food. Like, just don't apologize. I'm sure it'll be great. And then I always find myself doing the dishes at someone's house because things get going and everyone's chatting, and it's nice to like leave it all nice for someone. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And doing dishes at other people's houses is not as bad as your own. I find something about it. There's a magic where the spell is cast and it's not so bad, and it's really relaxing. So I try to bring a little Hostess something, little granola, little flower, just something, even a little garden bouquet. It does some passion fruit, something from the garden, like, or just a quickie, like pick up something. But yeah.
The visiting question was mine. I come from a Italian Catholic family, and mostly women. And I just have this great memory. My grandmother was an amazing cook, and my great aunt everybody would come, and then my grandmother would sit with her sister, my aunt, for hours after the meal, just like picking on whatever the antipasta was or the leftover, Italian cookies, whatever it was. And they would drink coffee at 10 o'clock at night and just sit there and talk, because, the kids had to do the dishes.
Yeah, awesome. I need to get into that.
Well, that was, yeah. If she who cooks does not clean,
I like that.
Is the rule in my house. But yeah, just that, like, being able to sit with somebody and really visit with them, and catch up on, who knows what they talked about. I have no idea, how awful we were, probably. I don't know. That, like, just sit down and walk, That's probably maybe what I miss.
I love that. I feel like that's the greatest gift you can give is someone your undivided attention and just your curiosity, and putting phones away and just like really being with a friend, I think is like the greatest gift to both of you. And it's so nice to linger over like a little something. And it reminds me exactly of my grandmother too, who was Russian, Jewish, Brooklyn, who always, barely ate anything, but always had treats in the house, like a chocolate cake or a babka or something to slice and linger on with coffee, which was like Nescafe. But just her and my parents or someone, they were just off by themselves chatting and lingering. and just like letting that time flow with conversation where you really get into like the long, meaningful, real life stuff that in our busy day-to-day and digital fractionalized lives and half steps is so missing. And I totally miss that. That is, you just reminded me of like those lingering moments are like such a gift. So I don't want to ever take those for granted again. And I think Italians do them the best after spending time in Italy teaching workshops. I mean, we would be with these dinners that would go for hours, and honestly by the end I was like, I am ready to go to bed. But they could just keep going and going, and I think that is probably like the secret to the long life and happy life.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I feel like we also got the opportunity to do that tonight. So
yeah, this was such a treat. I'm so honored to be here, and like you asked such insightful questions. I've never felt so like taken care of, and that you looked at all my work. I'm so touched. So it means a ton to me. It really does.
Yeah. Well, we're grateful for everything that you do, and just your work is beautiful. So thank you so much for taking the time to share it with us tonight.
Yeah, it was awesome. Leela, you were great. And the thing that was most striking is just your responses were so genuine. You're like, I'm in it. I think a lot of time we just pretend we're okay, but thanks.
Yeah. It's nice to talk to other people who are we're all in the same boat, and we're gonna like, this will be a crazy chapter in our life, but one that is wild and crazy. So we're in it, but
we're in it.
Hopefully we'll be doing this or sometime in person, and I can hang out. We can drink that drink and linger and make merry and buy books in person. And I will dream of that day. It'll be really fun.
Yeah, Isabel will cook.
Perfect.
Then you'll be doing the dishes, so
no problem. They're very good.
I think it looks like there was a second question. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, this is so sweet. Thanks for a lovely talk.
Because of chronic illness, my partner can't have sugar, starches, or grains. I just wanted to thank you for the recipes and food with friends that are safe for me to take to my partner. I was surprised by this.
Yay. Well, yeah, all my cookbooks are vegetarian because I'm veggie, but they're not like vegetarian food for friends. And then I pretty much like lean towards healthy-ish food. And then of course there's lots of treats as well. But thanks for saying that. Yeah, there is a range, like if you're gluten-free, vegan, or can't have starches or grains, there's still a lot of just homemade tasty food, I think, in all the books. So yeah, I hope to be as inclusive as possible without hammering it over the head of my beliefs.
My dog is mad at me because I didn't feed him before this, so he's trying to eat the chicken feed.
Eat you. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's eat, drink, and be merry sometime in the future. And I really appreciate all of your time, and thank you for all great questions, and for you on the side. And it looks like that book is by Raven Leilani Lester.
I added that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to start that soon.
Very good. Very hot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Isabel. Yeah. Lovely to meet you all.
Have a good night.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.